Hello, Maverick traders. This is Rob Reinhold. Nice to see you here. It is August 25th. Cannot believe that August is almost over. We've got some big news tomorrow. Let's get into it. Today, we had a really strong up day. We had the Dow up 1%, S&P up 1.4%, NASDAQ up 1 2/3%. As you can see, everything up really big. Now, most of this happened in the last hour. So at the first of the day, the S&P was up about 1%, somewhere about an hour after the open. Then we sold off and we were only up about 0.5%. And then in the last hour, we got a huge surge of money into the market, went straight up, and we closed at the highs. So again, a really strong day. Let's take a look at some of the news that happened today. We had Fed Governor Bullard. He came out and he was hawkish. He said that the interest rates need to be substantially higher. He likes the idea of front loading, which means he likes more aggressive raises early and then less later. And he's actually calling for 3 3/4 to 4% interest rates by the end of the year, which is higher than the market is forecasting. The market didn't seem to care about this. When his remarks came out, the market got a little bit twitchy and then just started going higher. So for some reason, the market liked it. We did have oil down 2%. And that's because an Iran agreement is starting to look more likely. And once an Iran agreement is put in place, that's going to put a lot of oil onto the market that is not there right now. So people are worried about this increasing supply that Iran is potentially going to be adding to the global supply. So let's take a look at the markets. And we actually talked about over the weekend that the markets were likely to pull back. We said the markets had about another 1 to 1.5%. And would bring us down into this support area. We said at this support area, we should see some sort of bounce. We don't know how big of a bounce we'll get, but you can see this is exactly what happened. It came down to this area, and today was a very nice confirmation candle that that support is likely to hold. If we take a look at the NASDAQ, we see the same thing. Came down right to the previous resistance area, had a bounce, a really strong candle today, with the close near the high. And if we take a look at like the advanced decline line was 3 stocks up for every 1 stock down. And this is just a sea of green. And look at the big winners. The big winners was big cap stocks and big cap tech. I mean, we had Boeing was up big, stuff in healthcare that was up big. Everything was up for the most part. So a very, very strong day today. So let's talk about our outlook for tomorrow. We've backed off our bullishness a little bit as we've had this pullback, but you can see that we have come back and we are now back above the 20 MA. I'm not ready to give this a +1 yet since it was just happening today. I want to see some follow through. If we get a green candle tomorrow, we definitely are going to go to a +2 market, which is a moderately bullish market. Until that happens, I think we are sitting here at a +1. And we did have a -1 for the week. We think we've already had our pullback. Technically speaking, this looks like a very classic bull pullback. And tomorrow, somewhere around 12 o'clock tomorrow, I'll be able to give a really nice outlook on what's likely to happen because we have really big news tomorrow. We have Jackson Hole Symposium. For those of you that don't know, the Jackson Hole Symposium is a once-a-year thing. Central bankers around the world all go to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and they give speeches. They've been doing this for 30 years. No one has cared except for when 2010 came around and Ben Bernanke surprisingly dropped new Fed policy in the meeting, and the market freaked out. And he did it again in 2012. So all of a sudden, this Jackson Hole Symposium has kind of become the place where you kind of announce new policy to the markets. Now, I doubt there's going to be any change in policy, but remember, this market is backed off of the idea that the Fed's going to be ultra hawkish. Now they're just going to be sort of hawkish. We'll have to see what Powell says tomorrow. If he is more hawkish than the market is expecting, I think the market probably loses today's gain, and we go right back underneath that 20-day moving average, and all of a sudden, the picture becomes a little bit more mixed. So a down day tomorrow, I think that you basically have to go back to that +1 and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be moderately or mildly bullish. I'm not going to count on the market to really do anything. We've also talked about how we're running into September, which is historically the worst month of the year. Our seasonality patterns just aren't right now to be really bullish. let's say tomorrow ends up being a really big up candle. Then all of a sudden, I think we are looking at making a run up again to the 200-day moving average and probably piercing through that. I'm waiting for his speech that's scheduled for 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I'll be ready to change my market analysis at that point. But at this point, just right before this major announcement, I'm just going to stick with where we were as a +1, mildly bullish in this market. Because of this big news, I'm not going to be sharing with you a ton of trade setups. I think it's much better for you to wait for Fed Chairman Powell to give his speech, let the market do its freak out thing, maybe at the end of the day take some positions, or just come back on Monday and look to take positions. So let's just take a look at a few trades here going into Friday. This is one I found I really liked. This thing has a ton of relative strength, and look at this run. I mean, look at this. Look at this run that we had. That has like 15, 16 green candles in a row, followed by 2 down candles. And then all of a sudden we've got, 6 out of 7 up candles. Whenever this thing pulls back, looks like the buyers are waiting here. We had a nice confirmation today. We've got some short-term resistance here at 11. So I do like this 11 as a very short-term target. If there is a chance to do a diagonal on this, I would love to do like a September 9 and then sell this week's 11. I don't know if this one has weeklies. You're going to have to check on it. If not, then I'm looking just at like a 9 to 12 vertical spread on this. This thing looks like it wants to keep running, even though it's had a really big run. Next up, a sideways play. This is CL, Colgate Palmolive. And you can see we just have a really nice classic bull pullback. We've had, again, it wasn't big volume on the pullback. We pulled back into support areas. We're starting to get some long lower shadows. So it's just telling us everything's coming to a point where we look like we're going to have a bounce. That being said, this bounce and this trend is just really, really low and slow. So we're not expecting a big thing. This is where we like a target, a butterfly. So really looking at a target of like an 82 or an 83. So what we do here is we say, you know what? We're going to peg this middle at 82. We don't think it's going to go break up above 84, and we don't think it's going to break below 80. So we could do like an 80, 82, 84 butterfly. It's going to be a theta positive trade. And we're just going to open up a mildly bullish trade on CL. You can see this is slightly bullish, meaning we think it's going to go up 1 point. And we're targeting next Friday on this one. So about a 6-day trade on a sideways trade. And then on the short side, the shippers. Star Bulk Carriers is one of the weakest ones in the group. You can see we broke this support at this 24.50. And so the question is, okay, where's the next area of support? It's going to be somewhere down here around 20. This isn't going to go down a ton. I don't like being aggressively bearish on anything here in this market. That's a moderate to mildly bullish market. But I think you can look at this and say, hey, you know what? Like a 22-23 bear call spread, it's a really wimpy trade. You're probably going to get in about 65 cents in a credit. That means you've got 35 cents of risk. So you can just position size this for max loss and let this thing do its thing. If this keeps weakening, the stock along with its industry group, this is just going to be a nice solid single or double that we can add to our results for the month. So for tomorrow, I think we're going to get a quiet open. The speech starts at 10 a.m. The market opens at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We're probably going to get not a lot of activity that first 30 minutes. The speech starts at 10, and probably he'll drop any bombshell that's new within the first 10 to 15 minutes. I think at about 10:15 to 10:30 Eastern Time, if the market hasn't done any sort of freak out, it's probably going to be a pretty boring day, and I think you can just look at the candle, how it closed on Friday, and if we close up above yesterday's candle, we're going to move to a +2 in the market and become a little bit more bullish. If we have a red candle and we dive back down below that 20-day moving average, we're going to be staying with our +1 or going to a 0, basically a very neutral to mildly bullish portfolio. Until that happens, until we see that candle, I'm not ready to make any sort of projection on where the market is going over the next week or two. Thanks for joining me for the Market Roundup. Have a great day. Goodbye, everyone.